All right, so a lot to unpack here. I'm going to try to keep this video under 15 to 20 minutes, just going over quickly what was said about the Barzal versus Point argument. But I'd like to go over this guy's points because I think some of it is a little insane, and some of the things he used to justify his points were also a little insane. Let's go over it one by one, shall we?
But the Islanders fans, they came for me yesterday. They came for me. They came for me in droves. They came for me hard. And listen, again, do I think some of them are crazy and insane? Absolutely. Do I respect them sticking up for their guy? Absolutely. This is what makes sports great. Okay.
What I do find funny is from listening to this segment of the podcast, he absolutely is sticking up for his guy in Braden Point, but that's okay. Small
People
point.
are very loyal to their players in their own market.
Sure.
And then they see everything.
Not me, though. I'm very real and honest about what Barzal's had to play with.
With rose-colored glasses over their eyes, and it's the situation where they can say it, but if an outsider says it, oh boy, right?
And the fun, I'll start off right here by saying tons of Islander fans, Barzal's entire career never gave the guy credit. We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Here's the reality for me. Matt Barzal is not an NHL franchise player. He may be the most gifted offensive player on your team in New York.
I don't think anyone ever argued that Barzal is a franchise-level player. He's certainly elite, though.
But at the end of the day, all of the excuses, it was a defensive system. Well, that defensive system is the only reason you got a couple, opportunities to play in a conference final.
Doesn't this kind of take away from your point, though? If the defensive system was the only reason they got that far, how could you possibly judge Braden Point and Mathew Barzal on the same scale? How is that fair when the Tampa Bay Lightning could play either way and win, and the Islanders had to play a certain way and win? Doesn't that tell you what team was better, which player had more surrounding talent? You don't need to work in hypotheticals. You just explained it to yourself.
Okay, the roster is not improving. They bring in Horvat. It's not really paid off that much. I mean, yeah, he's a scorer.
It hasn't paid off that much for Barzal, or it hasn't paid off that much for the entire team collapsing around them?
And Barzal's numbers have been better. But at the end of the day, to me, Barzal is a guy who has the puck on his stick. It looks pretty. It looks flashy. But I don't see him carrying a team offensively. I don't see him getting to the dirty areas of the ice.
What's crazy is I would consider Braden Point and Mathew Barzal both game breakers. They're not exactly, either of them, in my opinion, aren't franchise-level players. I think Braden Point, like I said, might be slightly closer. I still would put them probably in the same tier. One guy scores more goals, the other guy does everything else better, besides maybe defense, even though we know what type of team Tampa is and always has been.
I just don't see it. Yeah, he's got the puck on his stick all the time. He looks great in overtime. He's an all-star.
This is exactly what Boomer Islander fans say. I'm sorry.
The guy is an all-star, but to me, he's not an elite NHL player. He's not in that category of guys who you build a team around. And I'm sorry, that's just how I feel about. We're not talking about a skills competition. We're talking about how to build a team around a player who plays a style that is going to carry you to long-term success.
So this is the part where I think he misses the mark on who Mathew Barzal is. The only players in the last 3 years that have better transition numbers are Connor McDavid, Nathan MacKinnon, and Jack Hughes. I'm pretty sure that is the entire list. If you're building your team around a player, you want one who is always going to be bringing the puck in the offensive zone, right? That's one of the biggest parts of hockey is, hey, can this guy get in and create chances? He's also the last 3 years, or 2 years maybe, he's only created less shot assists than Connor McDavid. That means every time he passes the puck, you have a shot on net. Now, is every shot created equal? No. But ask Wayne Gretzky. I mean, what is one of the most famous quotes in hockey of all time? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. I mean, that is the exact type of player you build around, in my opinion. You just got to get a good supporting cast like Braden Point has with Hedman and Kucherov and Stamkos, who has Barzal played with during his career? Anders Lee, Leo Komarov, Josh Bailey. These are his most common line mates and some of the better players offensively on the team. You need to understand when you're looking at Barzal's numbers, he's led the team in points almost every season he's played there. The Islanders are a bottom 10 offensive team. They've always had been.
It was a skills competition.
Talk about other stuff.
10 out of 10, Matt Barzal. If I need to win a hockey game, or if I'm Team Canada picking the last spot on that roster, 100% of the time.
See, this is what kills me. He's talking about the last spot on a roster. Well, it depends what you're looking for. If you want a fourth line with the most speed, the most puck possession, the better transition player, the more skill, you're going with Mathew Barzal. If you're looking for someone to score goals on the fourth line, yeah, you go with Braden Point. I get it. If you're looking for the centerman, the better centerman, probably taking Braden Point. If I'm looking for a winger that's going to be able to outskate everyone and have the puck on his stick the entire shift, I'm going with Mathew Barzal. It depends what you're looking for to finish your team off. I find this argument insane, because obviously you're taking the better centerman here. But if you're looking for a winger, I'm going to take the player that's better in everything else besides goal scoring and maybe a couple other things in their overall game. This guy misses the entire point that hockey isn't just about goals, assists, points, and I don't know, toughness. It's weird that he ignores what Barzal's so good at. I already listed some of what makes him special.
Braden Point is a way more effective player, way more.
In terms of what? I like how that's a blank statement because he doesn't. It's in terms of goal scoring.
Effective player than Matt Barzal. And then here comes the argument. Colby, you only played 3 games in the NHL. You don't know what you're talking about. Okay. But the block.
All right, I hate that argument, by the way. That's usually the argument hockey bros use against people who didn't play at a high level or a serious level, by the way. I've gotten that a few times where I'll have a certain opinion and a hockey bro. There was actually an Islanders fan who said that, Barzal will be nothing more than a 60-point player for the rest of his career. That was a hockey bro who played a lot of hockey, and I told him he was wrong. Said all it's going to take is Barzal getting someone decent enough to play with him, and he'll be a point-per-game player. Go look at the numbers, buddy. I mean,
bloggers
right.
And the graph makers who can't skate know more about the game than I do.
See, this is the argument they use against you. Meanwhile, let's keep going. Let's keep going.
Every single day, you fall in love with your own players, okay? Every market does it. Johnny does it with the Rangers. Islanders fans do it with the Islanders.
I've constantly criticized this roster since I've always been a fan. I think Andersley is the knockoff Chinese Walmart version of Chris Kreider, always has been. And this year he's been abominable, too, for Horvat and Barzal. Josh Bailey's always been a second-line player dressed up as, this elite player to play on the top line. No idea why he got so many chances as is. I mean, we could go down the list. Leo Komarov was on the first line here. I don't defend it. I think this Islanders team has always been underwhelming and has been saved a lot of the years by Pelech and Pulak being one of the best D pairs in the NHL. If you look at the numbers with them when they were on the ice during those runs with the Islanders, every time those two were out there, 60% of the time the play was going the right direction and the Islanders were creating chances, the right way. That Pelech and Pulak pairing definitely, and then you had Taves in the back, and Mayfield at his prime was an elite playoff defenseman. I firmly believe that. Top 4, not anything more than that. You had Noah Dobson in the wings. The defense was what made and the goaltending, of course, is what made the Islanders so good. The offense was always bottom 10. I've never been rose-colored about that, ever. So I don't know what he's talking about.
They're kind of doing the opposite right now. They kind of hate their players, I feel like.
Yeah,
but again,
this guy gets
I'm just
it.
letting you know, this
what guy
happens.
doesn't.
You become a homer to your own players. You love them. You fall in love with them, and you see things through rosy-colored glasses. And I'm just letting you know, Matt Barzal is not a franchise player. He's not.
He might
be your best.
But that was never been the argument. He's an elite player. There's no doubt about it. You'd be insane to say otherwise.
Offensive player, but he is not a franchise player. He is not in that elite category of players. He's under it, but he's not in it. Okay? So you can watch this and say Colby Cohen thinks.
What is your definition of elite? Is it Matthews, McDavid, and 3 other guys? Is that your elite category? To me, it's got to be at least the top 20, 30 players in the NHL. And right now, Barzal's absolutely that, especially if you're just doing forwards. I mean, he's definitely top 20 right now. I mean, he has been phenomenal. I think if you went off your raw stats bullshit, he's 17th in points, and he plays with fucking nobody. Who does he play with? Can you name who he plays with? I don't even think you would know. Besides Bo Horvat, can you name our power play? If you can't name 4 out of 5 on our first power play, Your opinion
Matt
sucks.
Barzal's not a good hockey player. Never said it. He's an all-star, and he belongs.
How is someone an all-star but not an elite player?
As an all-star.
I mean, that is like a rare, small sample of players that made the all-star game that I wouldn't consider elite. But go off.
But he's not elite, okay?
Boom Jenner,
and he's not a franchise
what are we
player.
doing here?
And that's, at the end of the day, just the reality for me. And if you ask people who work in front offices in the NHL, they're going to tell you the exact same thing.
And this is how the Nick Foligno trade happened.
And if the Islander fan base wants to hate me for it, go ahead. Just like the Ranger fan base came.
And I don't hate you. I just wish you had listened to the PDOcast podcast that I sent you, because you would have been able to do your research on why Barzal is such a special player, because they dive into him really well, his deficiencies, what he does really well. But there's one thing that's very clear about Mathew Barzal. He's a top 5 player in most people's opinions that I've heard in skill in the NHL. And the reason a lot of it has not translated to goal scoring is because the guys can't keep up with him. During the podcast, they had mentioned that I agree with. They hadn't seen a player be able to hold the puck like that on his stick. There's a lot of comparisons drawn. It's like an Evgeny Malkin. Now, does he score goals like Malkin? Absolutely not. Does he have that game breaker mode in him like Malkin did, especially when Crosby was hurt? I fully believe so. I mean, we took down those Pittsburgh teams. Who do you think was the 1C on the Islanders when the Islanders beat those Pittsburgh teams? It was Mathew Barzal. I mean, man, and he was playing with like Leo Komarov one of those years, or Josh Bailey like the other year. He didn't really have that much run support, man. And he was good in the playoffs. Sure, he wasn't Braden Point numbers, but if you put him on Tampa, he might have been. I don't know how you can not work in hypotheticals. It's crazy. You're talking about a guy who plays with 4 franchise Hall of Famers and one guy who's playing with a roster that probably will be forgotten in 20, 30 years. I mean, to me, that's just not being fair.
Underestimating Matt Barzal a lot this season, this specific season, because he has certainly taken a different leap this year. He's been unbelievable for the Islanders.
He's actually got his lowest rate of production at 5v5 this year, if you can believe that. He's never been under 2 points per 60 at 5v5 in his career. You're telling me that's not an elite player? Like I said, name who he's played with. I'd be shocked if you knew before I told you who he's been playing with during these years.
This season?
Not to say Barzal's not having one of his best years. He's been shooting the puck a lot more. But that's because Bo Horvat came in. They literally got who I would consider in the same tier as Zibanejad as a low-end 1C, and all of a sudden Barzal's over a point per game player. How does that happen? Oh, because he has somebody to play with. I mean, people act like McDavid's playing with Leo Komarovs and Josh Baileys. The man is not. None of these elite franchise-level players are. And most of them, like I said, the franchise-level guys, they're better than Barzal. I never said that was the case. But Barzal's never had run support, and he's a playmaker. Barzal, a lot of his success in the league has been able to create his own space. Those types of players are absolutely elite. They are few and far between. The majority of players, you talk about Rangers fan right here, guys like Lafreniere, first overall pick, he's not really that type of guy. You know, you can tell the difference between someone who's an elite player and just like a top 6 forward. I mean, you talk about Barzal more like he's Bo Horvat. You know, to be honest, like he's in that tier. And I don't even think Bo is far off from elite. I think he's probably a tier or two below it. But that seems to be the way you talk about Barzal, and it baffles me.
It's hard to say, well, what if you switch them from team to team? I have no idea. That's not reality-based. Be mad at...
Is it not? I mean, are you just going to ignore what happened to Johnny Gaudreau? Is that not like a perfect example of what happens when you take a player that's elite but not franchise level and you actually put them on a team with no help? I mean, is that not your perfect comparison? I mean, I would consider Gaudreau and Barzal, for the most part, pretty close to the same tier. They certainly are with transition stats. When you look at them side by side throughout their careers, they're some of the best guys in the league. Those are the elite players, man. The guys who drive play.
Your general manager then for not surrounding him with who you think is talented enough. But all I can go on.
This is what I don't understand. He brings out the blame Lou stuff, and I get it. Like I hate to defend Lou right now, but he tried to get Panarin. You ask the media, any close media that's been around the locker rooms and stuff. He definitely tried to get DeBrincat.
Someone tweeted yesterday, is Jack Eichel a franchise player? Vegas didn't have a franchise player. I would say Alex Pietrangelo, okay, is a franchise.
Okay, but I mean that's like a borderline argument, I guess. I wouldn't consider Pietrangelo a franchise player, but you know some people would. That's fine. None of the forwards on Vegas, in my opinion, were franchise level players. So I don't know. Barzal could have won a cup, and it just would have been off of Pelican Pulak playing like franchise level players that year. Pelican Pulak were absolutely, there's no denying it, franchise level talents that year. Every time they were on the ice, they had numbers in comparison pretty damn close to like when Makar and Taves were during their Stanley Cup run. So, I mean, the Islanders had it. They lost to a Tampa team with 6 Hall of Famers. Like, at the end of the day, they went to Game 6 and Game 7 against them. And they were the inferior team, where Braden Point was collecting all his points. I'm not trying to diss Braden Point. Braden Point is an excellent player. He's a 1C. He's probably a top 10 center in the league. But he's close to Barzal in a tier, for sure.
Player, how are you not going to call Alex Pietrangelo with 2-point production?
Using Stanley Cups to decide who's a franchise-level player is a bad idea, brother. McDavid and Draisaitl have none.
Who is like
franchise
How many
player?
does Matthews have?
Austin
You would take all 3 of those players over everyone you just mentioned.
Not Mitch
core
Marner.
4, yeah. Ooh. Wait, I think I might have a good one. Brady Tkachuk.
Because
he's been in the conversation.
He's a franchise player.
Yeah.
He's a franchise player. All right, here's his stats. Since you love dropping the stats of Mathew Barzal, an 83-point player. That is his career high so far, up until 24 years old. 83 points, 325 points in 416 games. Ottawa's in the frickin' basement every year. Got a career high of 83 points as a franchise-level player. Barzal broke that in his rookie season. What are you talking about? This last point was the one that sent me off the edge. And it's where I don't know if it's a hockey bros thing, because he's big and tough and he hits a lot and he's mean. Brady Tkachuk's not a franchise-level player, and I think most people wouldn't even take him over Mathew Barzal, to be honest. That's a fun one to do a poll on. At least with Braden Point, I could understand why most people would, and probably deservedly so. I would take Mathew Barzal over Brady Tkachuk any day of the week. You want to talk about a tier difference? That's a tier difference. Thanks for watching.